What's up, everybody? It's Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of the creditrepairshop.com. We're going to talk about the debt that's being released into the market, and I also want to talk about the strategies that debt collectors are starting to use. You know, YouTube is a excellent uh, vehicle for getting information out to people. It's an excellent way for people to learn about things that that they either trying to learn about or try to fix, like with credit and debt. But it's also a double edge because what starts to happen is, just like you're here looking at how you can fight against debt collectors. On the flip side, you got debt collection companies that watch my videos and they look at ways that they can fight off of the information that I teach you uh, on how to fight back against debt collectors. And so, and we all know that when we're looking at stuff in court, we've seen people lose in court that they should have won, and you've seen people win in court that they should have lost. And basically, from my experience, what it comes down to is it comes down to a war of attrition. Uh, I'm bringing this up because I'm starting to see how debt collectors are starting to respond to if they're either doing court summons or if you're doing debt validations. Is that what they're using? They're using techniques that will get the average individual to just stop responding. Because what they'll do is they will send you all types of information. Uh, if it's a debt validation, you ask them to submit all of the information about a debt that they're claiming that you have to pay. And you have a right to do that. They know you have a right to do that. But what you don't understand and what they started doing to take it up a notch is they try to play this game of confusion. They want to confuse you by sending you a whole bunch of information. There's one client that received a stack of almost 50 documents. Now, any individual, I don't care who it is going to, to receive 50 documents and to understand what that is going to mean towards them either continuing with a lawsuit or continuing with a demand for paying a debt collection. Who uh, is going to understand that? Anyone that is not deeply involved in the business, who is going to really understand what they're trying to do? Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to throw a lot of information at you to get you confused, to get you off the basis of what your initial debt validation is all about. Now, not to say that the information that they sent you doesn't answer the overall debt validation. And this goes for court and it goes for doing a regular debt validation when they send a letter demanding payment. And we're talking about third party collection companies because when we're not talking about an original creditor, that's a whole nother uh, ballpark because they don't have to do a lot of the things that third party debt collectors have to do. So what they do is they'll send you all of this information, and then the average individual, and when I say average, someone that's just not doing this stuff all the time, is going to get that and they're going to think, that's a lot of stuff. What do I do next? Well, what you do next is you have to comb through it and you have to have your debt validation sitting next to you and you have to see if all of the information is answering what you asked for. Bottom line, that's basically what it comes down to. bottom line. But most people, when they get a big packet of 50 documents, 60 documents, I've seen some as much as 100 documents, they get that, they just like, what am I supposed to do with this? So, but the debt collectors are using this strategy, and what I'm seeing them have to do, because when they normally buy a portfolio, they're just basically getting the last four digits of last four digits of an account, or a certain amount of numbers for an account. They don't even get the whole account information, the whole account number. They're getting some statements. They may get the original contract if they're even allowed to get that information. They might get the original contract. That even depends on the level of the portfolio that they purchase. But they're mainly going to get information just stating, number one, that you had an account, number two, the last digits of your account number. They don't even get the complete account number. That's already one strike against them, and that's why they try to build their cases or build their information off of everything else that they got. And then they'll get the information stating, an affidavit stating that they got the information from the original creditor, and that the original creditor looked over, and this is 100% accurate, the information that they got. And then they get some statements. If I didn't say that already, some statements, and then they'll package that up with if it's in a court summons, they're going to say that they made demands for you to pay, that they offered you the opportunity. If it's a demand letter, then they're just basically stating that they're demanding payments, and then they'll respond back with that information on a debt validation. And then your job, what you have to do is you have to tear that stuff apart, because just like they're only giving you a certain amount of information that they have, your job is to ask them for the information that they did not provide, but the information that they provided was off of the information that they provided, that was half of the information. So let me give you an example. If you look at, if you have a statement, either a demand letter or you have a court summons, and they put statements in there, and they blackened out. You think that they blacked out that information on there? No, the portfolio that they purchased from the original creditor, they redacted that information. Because trust me, the um, the debt collector would want everything to be able to prove like 100% that you are the person. This is the account number, everything, nothing is redacted. So what you do is you fight. Number one, if they send documents back, you say, hey, I want all of this stuff unredacted, because I can't make any determination off of what you're sending me with this information covered up. I've never received any information from the original creditor where they had stuff that was blackened out. I never did. So I don't even know if this document is true. I'm not saying that it's not true, but I'm saying that I want to have all of this information that you uh, have covered up right here. And you're saying that they covered it up, uh, but really the original creditor covered it up. But when you're pointing at them, it's like, why are you covering this information up? You're not letting them know that you know that they covered it up. You're just saying, hey, why did, let me see all of this information. If it's about me, I want to be able to verify all of this information. And then what they've done when people have asked that is that they go through this little phase of a lot of back and forth on the way that they have to prove that I don't, like one collection agency kept sending documents back where they would never answer the outright question that the client was asking in their responses to their court summons. They just kept going off of other court cases where uh, that were in the favor that were the decision was in the favor of debt collection companies from another person that took it all the way, against the debt collector, and they would just put in, hey, case such and such versus so and so, debt collection company won, and this is the court case. Didn't really go into anything about it. Basically, what they're just trying to do is to say, if we can make this harder for them to fight, the harder we can make this for them to fight, the 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 better possibility that they're going to quit and they're going to give up and they're going to stop going back and forth with the case. And most people will do that, and that even goes for doing a debt validation. Uh, we've done, I mean, just because of what had happened with COVID and the way that the bureaus were working, where they were just not really responding because they were working under COVID restrictions. So their mailroom, their processing, all of that stuff, whatever they do inside of there, they were under restrictions. So what we had did is we had ramped up our debt validation side, and we had started seeing, number one, a lot of results were happening from it, and it still happens from it. But there are groups of debt collectors that when they get those debt validations, they will take it to the max. Like they're going to go back and forth with you. We did this, we did that, we got this, we got that. And then you got to respond back, and off of what they said. And it makes people get frustrated. It makes people get where it's just like, I want to quit. And I'm here to tell you that just because you quit doesn't mean someone else quits coming after you. They're going to continue, and then they're going to ramp up because they're going to know once you stop responding that you basically quit. Now, uh, I want to be clear about something because something came to my mind when I said when you stop responding. Now, in a court case, let's put that aside. Let's talk about doing a debt validation. And I do have my free debt validation letters. The links are below this video. Let's talk about a debt validation back and forth. You submit information, they come back with information. You respond to that information, they come back. At some point, at some point, and this happens a lot, and this really frustrates uh, clients when this happens. But I'm just being upfront with you. This is the way it is. At some point with a debt validation, it could be what I call a stalemate, where it's going to be what's the next move of the debt collector. Because if they get everything to you, if they get all of the information to you, they uncover, there's no masking of documents, complete account number. They even get the original creditor's contract with your signature on there. There is going to be a period of time where you have to wait and see what their next move is going to be. And if you don't have time, like some people, I talk about this a lot, where you have to know where you're at with your situation, because you can't get frustrated if it's at a stalemate and they've given all the information to provide that you've asked them to provide the proof of a debt collection that you might have to pay. But then in your mind, you're like, I don't want to pay that. But also in your mind is, I want to be able to deal with this so I can move forward in my life. That's what I mean by not understanding where you're at. Because you're in two places. Your mind is saying I want to move forward, but your other side of your mind and your body is saying I don't want to deal with this debt right here. That I've gotten all the information that I requested, and really the logical next step would be to go into a settlement phase with that debt collector so you can move forward. Um, But a lot of people get into that uh, where like they're thinking two different ways. They want one result, but they know that on the other hand, that result is basically impossible. And we don't talk about doing stuff that's impossible. We do talk about doing things that you might have thought wasn't possible, but we don't sit here and try to set people up for the impossible. We set people up for a rational experience. That means that when I get what I ask for when it comes to a debt validation and everything is proven, I have to make a determination in my mind if I want to move forward or if I want to stay stuck right here. And I advise people, because this is what I had to do in my own life, is that at some point you gotta pay up so you can move forward. When you think you took a step back, you're actually taking a quick step back, but you're taking many steps forward because your life will be way better uh, uh, picture experience. Everything will be better when you clear that piece of time out of your mind in dealing with that debt collector, so you can move forward with what you want to be able to do in your life, because you can't get that time back. So don't just, if it's at a standstill, uh, regroup, which is what we tell our clients to do. Is we have a regroup period and we have a conversation with them. Is this something that, from our eyes, this might be something that you want to settle, and we give them that option, and some take it, some don't. So here, thank you for letting me talk to you about that. Now I want to talk about the debt that's being released into the market, and it is ramping up. There is a mixed group of collections, 3.38 million dollars. Average chart off date 2014. Average balance is $705. I'm not sure if I mentioned this one before, but maybe. Average charge off date is 20. Well, they got 2000 to 2014. 2000 to 2014. I don't know why they got that mixed like that. Let's see what else they sent. Uh, got another batch here, $5.54 million. I think I mentioned this one before. Not sure. Uh, 685 accounts. Average balance is $8,000, and the average start off date is 2011. Uh, Obviously, this stuff is way out of statute of limitations for most states. Let's see, this other group is $2.73 million. Average charge off date is 2007. Average balance $1,300. These are all credit cards. Let's go into the next one. That's a repeat. They kept repeating that one file because they haven't been able to get rid of it. Let me make sure I'm not repeating this one. Okay, we got another one here. Where we at? I just saw it. Just saw it. Here we go. That one's a repeat. That's a repeat. Like they're trying to push to get rid of a certain batch of accounts uh, from the group. Really pressing hard on there. Here's one 7.33 million. I think I've seen this one. Let's see. Average account balance 1900 is from charge off date 2000 to 2010. Whoa. All credit card debt. So let's talk about the steps that we take when we get these demand letters, because that's what they're going to do. Step number one for the debt collector: they bought the debt. They're going to look up on credit reports, try to do some tracing, see where you're living at, send you a demand letter, or they're going to send it with the forwarding request back to try to find where you're at. They find where you're at. They send a demand letter. Demand letter looks like a letter, like a bill, but it's not actually a bill. If you take your time and read it, it's asking you to if you want to dispute it. So it's not technically a bill yet. If you don't respond to that letter within 30 days, you give them the right to place that information on your credit reports. Then, but we're not going to. You're going to be smart and not get to that. And even if you did miss it, I'm going to tell you how to deal with that. Um, so what you want to do is you want to send them a cease and desist letter, or step number one, you want to see if it's past statute of limitations. 99.9% of this debt is going to be past statute of limitations for every state in the United States except for one. One has a 15-year statute of limitation. Well, so sorry, people who live in that state. If you need to get the list of statute of limitations the statute of limitations for your state, go to my website, creditrepairshop.com. Go to my blog. It's at the bottom. Type in statute of limitations. You'll get a list. You're going to look in the fourth column. If it's a credit card, department store, any type of card that you can charge and then reuse the portion that you paid off, an open-end account. It's going to be in the fourth column. Statute of limitations a little bit shorter for credit cards. If it's past statute of limitations, you just simply send a letter notifying them that they're coming after you for a debt that they cannot come after you for, that it's past legal statute of limitations. I give you that letter. It's below here. Simple. You don't need to go into the debt. I don't know this, I don't know that, all that. It was back then, that chart off, this, all that mess. Don't get into that. Stay away from it. Just simply send that letter. It'll go away. If it's not past legal statute of limitations to collect, then you want to send my cease and desist collection activities letter. That letter sounds simple, but it's not simple. It makes them answer a lot of questions that I just talked about earlier in this video. Not to say that it'll always make the debt go away, but it's going to make them make a determination to see if they're going to really try to come after you for the debt. But it gets a lot of people end up not having to pay debt that was purchased by a third-party debt collector when they send out that letter. That's a special letter. That letter is really worth thousands of dollars, because if you got a collection coming after you for $1,989 and you use that cease and desist letter and it stops them, I would say that you should send me a donation of at least $100. Just saying. Because that letter, you can use that letter over and over. It's like a ammunition for fighting against debt collectors that buy this type of debt. Now, like what we were talking about earlier, if they send you documentation and they say, no, you have to pay this, we got this information, then you want to do a full debt validation. And all you have to do, download the letter, links below here, but you just read it so you can know what you're asking them for. And then that way, when they send stuff back to you, you can look, just in case they try to send you a stack of stuff like I talked about earlier in the video, you will be able to know if they're actually answering the debt validation, because they're going to try to delay or just throw a whole bunch of information on top of you and hope that you quit and so they can proceed. Most of the time, when what I've seen is that when you do a very good debt validation, a lot of times the debt collectors are more pushing to try to do settlements on the account rather than trying to go to court, because they're going to know that when they buy this type of debt, even if it's not past statute of limitations, when they buy this type of debt, that if they don't get all the information and you push and you ask the right question in court, it could get the whole thing dismissed and then they lost money and time. Another thing that I want to also talk about that came to my mind, when if a debt is something that you believe that you do have to pay. I mean, first, if it's something that you have to pay, they've proven everything, it is good to go with a settlement. But another part of it is if you can actually make a mistake And I've seen a lot of people do this where you a debt is past the legal statute of limitation, but they, got you on the phone. The debt collector made a lot of threats. Maybe you just started a new job. You just don't want the trouble. You don't need the trouble. They, did some tactics that got you very emotional, and you accidentally made a payment to them. That will actually reset the statute of limitations. So you got to be very careful. You don't want to do anything what they call a test to the debt. You can ask for verification, validation, but you don't want to say that this debt is mine. So let me give you an example. You're on the phone. You're speaking with a debt collector. You got a letter. Or they called you and you answered. Hey, what is this number? Let me see what this is about. And they say this is debt collector so and so. You're trying to information, any information we get from you is pertaining to a debt. Well, what you could do immediately when you get that call is number one, you say, Mr. or Mrs. Debt Collector, I do not admit to owing this debt that you're talking about. And what I would like for you to do is to send me in writing what you're claiming I owe. And they have to do that. And then at that time, too, you can say, I want you to cease and desist all calls to me, communications by phone, and I want you to do everything in writing. Reason why you want to make them do that in writing is so you can start getting what they got and building your file of your correspondence going back and forth because they're recording that call for if they need to use it for something in their favor. But do you think that they're going to just offer that call up to you just because you asked for it? No, you have to go through all types of court um, subpoenas to be able to get that information from them. So what you want to do is you want to flip it around on them and you want to say, stop communicating with me by the phone, send everything you're talking about in writing, and I want you to send what you just claimed I owed, which I am not admitting to it, and you're recording this call, so it's on record. I'm not admitting to it. I just want you to send me what you're claiming. And we've seen where some debt collectors won't even send it. They just say, "Hey, X this one off of the list. We're not gonna, get it, be able to get this," because they could be sending a debt trying to collect on a debt that is not collectible. And also be careful, and this has happened also before, where uh, debt collectors will call you and then they will have a recording, or if you call in from a number, you're calling the debt collector back about a debt, and they will say that this is a time barred debt and that they're calling you about a time barred debt and you have no legal obligation, but you have a moral obligation. And what they're basically saying is that they're basically telling you that when they say the word time barred, that means that the debt is past the legal statute of limitations to collect. But they're telling you by the rule. It seemed like what happened is that when they had the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act put together, someone in the room was on the side of the debt collectors because they said, why don't we use the word time barred rather than the word uncollectible or legally uncollectible? Why wouldn't they just use that phrase instead of time barred? You don't know. But a lot of people get confused when they hear that because they're like, time barred, what does that mean? Well, time barred debt means that they cannot legally collect it from you unless you reset the time by making some type of payment, some type of agreement, something to initiate a new contract. So be very careful about that. So I'm going to end the video here. This is Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of thecreditrepairshop.com. If you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Link is below this video. If you need your credit reports and scores, visit your number3scores.com. The debt validation letter, the statute of limitations letter, and the cease and desist collection activities letters, they're all below here. Uh, and there's a whole bunch of other resource links below this video. Thank you for your time.